EarthEcho.org to learn more about our programs after this event. Just a reminder that you can send in questions anytime via chat, and we will break throughout today's presentation to answer your questions. Feel free to start typing questions in the chat space on YouTube or in the Zoom feed. We'll be sure to answer those as we go along. Please join me in welcoming Alyssa Azari, Senior Vice President of BioSeed. Take it away, Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, and hi, everyone. As Jacqueline said, my name is Alyssa Irizarry, and I'm the Senior Vice President of BioSeed Ocean Awareness Programs. And greetings from Boston. I'm so excited to be joining all of you today and partnering with EarthEcho to bring on this great event. And I'm also joined by Tippy, the feline ambassador for BioSeed. So welcome to her. And yeah, let's dive in. So a little bit about me first. My love for the ocean began when I was really little. And I was really lucky to be able to visit and explore and build a connection to a couple of really special places along the East Coast on the Atlantic Ocean. And I've also been drawing and painting since I was a child. So the arts have always been an important part of my life, and nature and wildlife were subjects that I frequently incorporated into the artistic work that I was doing. And I was also really into hair wraps, as you can see by that photo. In college, I studied art history and environmental studies, and I became particularly interested in how the arts could be used as a tool by educators and conservation groups to engage folks in environmental awareness and action. So I worked as an educator on a sustainable floating urban farm, at an aquarium, and at a semester school in the Bahamas. And I also manage communications for a nonprofit that does environmental field research around the world. And now at BioSeed, I oversee our programming that uses arts as a way to educate and inspire teenagers to get involved in conservation. And it's really amazing to do work that not only allows me to combine what I'm passionate about, but is also part of this larger movement of folks, young and old, like EarthEcho and Biodiversity Teach-In, and all of you watching who are working to protect this amazing planet that we call home. So BioSeed Ocean Awareness Programs is a Massachusetts-based nonprofit organization, and our mission is to engage young people in ocean conservation and advocacy through the arts. And our goal is to provide teens with the tools and skills and confidence to be active creators of positive social and environmental change in their communities. And our programs focus on the arts because we believe that creative expression and imagination are powerful ways to help students learn about and connect with the environment, and also tools that can make visible and communicate threats to our ocean and inspire people to come together to take care of our planet. So we've created this platform for young people to share artwork and stories and ideas that are within a global community of other youth who are passionate about conservation. And we really try to empower young people to give a voice to the ocean, even if they live hundreds of miles from the coast. And BioSeed's largest program is the Ocean Awareness Contest. So this invites middle and high school students from around the world to explore how human activities impact the health of our ocean through visual art, writing, film, multimedia, music, dance. And since 2012, more than 13,000 teens from all 50 US states and 106 countries have participated. And we've awarded nearly $300,000 in scholarships to help advance young people's creative talents and their passion for the environment. And over the past several years, we've built this archive with thousands of works of art and other creative media that's solely focused on our ocean and ocean health. And we use these pieces in art exhibitions, film screenings, in publications, at community events, and in support of our partners' environmental campaigns. And so all of this amplifies the students' messages for ocean conservation to larger and broader audiences. And what you see scrolling there is our online gallery of all of this artwork and media. So after this presentation, I encourage you to check out this gallery for a major inspiration, and the URL will be at the end. So it's the contest is this really amazing way to join a global community of young people in this effort to raise awareness not only about climate change and its effects on our ocean, but also to uplift solutions and use the power of creative media and storytelling to inspire and shift people to act. And I'll be sharing at the end of this presentation how you and your classmates and friends can join us this year. So something that we hear often from our student artists is that just before they began their creative projects for the Ocean Awareness Contest, they didn't realize just how important the ocean is to their lives. And our students come from all over the world, and many have never even been to the beach, but all of us, no matter where we live, depend on a healthy ocean. And you can thank our ocean for every other breath you take, as more than half of the oxygen in the air we breathe comes from our living ocean. So we truly live on this blue planet, and our ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface and supports the greatest abundance of life on Earth. It is home to millions of species, and many of those are completely unknown to us already. But unfortunately, marine biodiversity is increasingly threatened by habitat destruction, pollution, and climate change. And for a lot of folks, the ocean is something that's out of sight and out of mind, and we want to change that. So our students are creating artwork and projects about the importance of marine ecosystems and marine wildlife to raise awareness of these amazing places and species that we share this blue planet with. And I'll be sharing some of their work with you for the next 15 minutes or so, which will hopefully excite you and your classmates and your teachers to learn more and do whatever you can wherever you are to protect our ocean. And I'll be focusing on two very different but very important marine ecosystems that are home to a rich diversity of life. So I'm going to start in the polar regions and then move to tropical coral reefs. And all of the artwork that you see throughout this presentation was created by young participants in our artistic programs. So polar habitats are, as you probably guessed, near the Earth's poles. So in the north, we have the Arctic and we have the Antarctic in the south. And many animals like whales and birds seasonally migrate or travel to these areas to feed. And they're also home to marine animals that we all know and love, like polar bears in the Arctic and penguins in the Antarctic. And in the Arctic, the sea ice is really the foundation for a healthy ecosystem and has also been sustaining human communities who have lived along the ice for thousands of years. So plankton and algae are found in the sea ice, and these tiny plants and organisms form the base of the food web, which you can see here, which includes fish and seals and whales, and one of the largest predators, which is the polar bear. But global warming, which is caused by the burning of fossil fuels such as oil and coal and gas, is rapidly changing these polar regions. And the Arctic is warming faster than most other places on Earth. And in the Arctic, one of the impacts of this warming is the melting of sea ice. And for a long time, the story of global warming has been told with photos of polar bears. And I'm sure you know what I mean. We've all kind of like felt our heartbreak a little bit at seeing those photos of skinny polar bears that are clinging onto a melting piece of ice, and it's the worst. And the polar bear was the first species protected under the Endangered Species Act solely because of threats from global warming. So polar bears rely on sea ice for hunting and traveling. So if we don't have ice, we don't have polar bears. And you can see in these works how our student artists are starting to think about this. In Ashley's piece on the left, which is called Chain Reaction, she illustrates that polar bear populations are unraveling because of the fossil fuel industry. And Brendan's digital art piece shows what he calls global warming in action. So it's an Arctic with little sea ice to support wildlife. And his intention was not only to educate viewers about the impact of climate change in the Arctic, but also to connect viewers emotionally with how wildlife is losing its home and compel them to do something. And every species plays a role in an ecosystem, which is why protecting biodiversity is so important. Polar bears are considered a keystone species, and as a top predator, they keep populations of other species in balance. So the health of the Arctic ecosystem as a whole is connected to polar bears' health as a species, which is something that Claire on the left is considering in her piece, Arctic Fever. Scientists and conservationists and advocates have been really calling for urgent action to slow climate change, not only to try to give polar marine species more time to adjust in this rapidly changing planetary conditions, but also millions of people, many who are indigenous to the Arctic, are vulnerable to losing their homes and ways of life. And Jane on the right is exploring this idea of time and action or inaction in her drawing, which is called Time is Running Out. And even if you live far from the poles, changes in these regions do affect all of us. And one major impact that you've probably heard about is sea level rise. So a couple of years ago, NASA scientists said that we were already locked in for about 3 feet of sea level rise in the coming decades, which would displace and is displacing millions of people. This is already happening. But scientists say that if we continue with business as usual, extracting and burning fossil fuels at the rate we are now, without taking steps to significantly reduce emissions, global warming would likely melt all of the land-based ice at the poles, and this includes glaciers and ice sheets, and this would raise the sea level by 200 feet. So in the US, the entire eastern seaboard, Florida, Los Angeles, other major cities would be completely underwater. And this is by no means certain, of course, and it really depends a lot on what we do in the next 10 years to slow the climate crisis. So climate change in the poles has so much to do with the actions that we take everywhere else. And our students are using their artwork to highlight how climate change puts polar bears and other polar species survival at risk. They use their artwork to show others that polar regions are in trouble, and most importantly, to build support for protecting these really important marine ecosystems. So to help our polar regions, we really need to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions in an effort to slow climate change. And we can do this on a personal level, right? By driving or flying less, eating less meat, and of course, spreading the word and educating others about climate change. But another really important thing that we can do is encourage our local and national government officials to be climate leaders and to transition our communities away from fossil fuels and invest in renewable energy sources.
Great, thank you so much for sharing about the program. I love seeing all this amazing artwork. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So a question that we had from YouTube is, if you aren't a teacher or a young person, or maybe you're just not the greatest artist, how can you get involved with Bowseat?
Definitely. Well, if you're near the Boston area, we often have events or art exhibits that we're looking for, volunteers, support. We love people to come out and see the students' work or help us, amplify the students' work and through these events. But if you're not close to Boston, really sharing the students' work on social media or through your networks is a really impactful way to get their messages out there. You can also host your own art show or poetry reading or film screening, and we can share some of the students' work with you to help really bring that event to life. We love to support other people's events with our student work. And stay involved with our global community and online network. I think those are kind of the biggest ways that you can participate.
Fabulous, thank you. So it looks like we don't have any other questions yet, but we'll come back for more questions in a minute if you want to keep going.
Super. Okay, so now we're going to dive into a different marine ecosystem, coral reefs. So coral reefs are often referred to as rainforests of the sea because of their really immense biodiversity. And while there are some deep cold water corals, most of the reefs are found in shallow and warm tropical waters. And coral reefs occupy 0.1% of the area of the ocean, but incredibly, They support 25% of all marine species on the planet. And unfortunately, again, our planet's reefs are threatened by pollution, coastal development, overfishing, and of course, climate change. And a lot of people might think that coral are these big, colorful rocks, but they are actually a colony of living animals called polyps. So polyps feed on plankton, but they also get food from a microscopic plant that lives inside the coral called Zooxanthellae. And they have what is called a symbiotic relationship. So the coral provides a home and protection for the Zooxanthellae, and the Zooxanthellae provide food for coral through photosynthesis. And you can kind of see what I'm explaining here in this clip from an animation that was created by one of our students in a video project. But when the water has too much pollution, or the water temperature gets too high, corals can get stressed out. And if they're under too much stress, they eventually eject the Zooxanthellae and they turn white. So this is called coral bleaching. And this doesn't mean that they are dead and they can survive bleaching, but it does make them vulnerable to getting sick. And the leading cause of bleaching right now in our world's reefs is the rise in water temperature, which is an impact of climate change. So if the water temperature stays too high, the corals will eventually die. And you can see Lindsay's drawing is kind of illustrating what is happening here, right? So the vibrant coral that's bleaching from this heat-related stress, expelling its Zooxanthellae, bleaching, and turning white. So according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, around 75% of the world's coral reefs experienced heat stress and coral bleaching from 2014 to 2017. And bleaching has major impacts on entire reef ecosystems because, as I said before, 25% of all marine species rely on healthy coral reefs. So this is thousands of marine animals like sea turtles and sharks and fish, and crabs and shrimp and many, many more, which rely on the reefs for food, shelter, or areas where they reproduce. And both of these student artists created pieces that show how healthy reefs really support a biodiverse ecosystem, but what happens when we start to lose reefs from climate change and coral bleaching. And many of our student artists also focus on how humans are connected to the health of coral reefs. So 500 million people around the world depend on reefs for food or to make a living. And these healthy coral reefs also protect coastal communities from the impacts of tropical storms by absorbing strong waves. And Mackenzie, the artist on the left, created a series of masks, ceramic masks, to show our connection to the ocean and to coral reefs. And this is a series that she named Self-Destruction. So she writes that the final mask is what our coral reefs will look like if we continue to ignore climate change and refuse to change our ways. So some wise words there from Mackenzie. But thankfully, there is time to protect and restore our reefs. And there are lots of researchers that are trying to, that are studying this. So there are some that are trying to grow super corals that can withstand higher water temperatures. So they might be more likely to survive impacts of climate change. And there's also many, many people and many coastal communities that are working to study, protect, and restore reef ecosystems through projects like underwater coral farming. Tippy wants to chime in. But as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot that you can do as an individual to lower your carbon footprint and build climate knowledge with your family, friends, and at school. So you don't need to be a climate scientist or an expert to raise awareness about the issue. Just talking about climate change and our oceans is a really powerful action. But I encourage you to join or create community around climate solutions, whether that's starting a sustainability group at school or hosting a climate education event or joining a climate strike or volunteering with a local environmental nonprofit. We are all stronger when we work together. I would just like, in the remaining minutes that we have, to share a few stories about Bowseat students that have used their creative voices and shared their art in their communities to activate others to get involved. So Ashley is a high school student in New Jersey who has participated in our Ocean Awareness Contest and is a community member for several years in a row. And for Ashley, the contest was or is a platform to develop her interest in environmental issues. And over the years, her artistic practice has really energized her environmental activism. So recently, Ashley designed and created a series of educational activity booklets that she used to teach elementary school students about the impact of plastic pollution on our waterways. And she also used her design skills to support a town-wide cleanup event. So Ashley is really passionate about using visual art in her design to communicate environmental messages. And she believes that sharing our visions can inspire others to make small, everyday changes that really add up and benefit the planet and our communities. Kathy is a high school student in Ontario, Canada, and she earned an award for her painting, Erasing Our Oceans, which you can see there. And Kathy's painting and her award caught the attention of some of her community leaders. So she was invited to represent the youth perspective at a series of local climate change events. And Kathy has also used this painting in her work as a member of a local environmental action group. And Kathy realized that art can be a global communicator. As she put it, it's a way that we can exchange ideas without any language barriers. And the process of creating artwork opened her eyes to the different possibilities of spreading awareness and making a bigger change in the world around her. And I have been focusing on visual artists during this presentation, but Akila is one of Bowseat's award-winning poets. So Akila had never visited the ocean, but was deeply moved by learning about pollution and climate change and environmental injustice. And writing poetry in response to learning about these issues was her first really empowering step as an activist. So Akila went on to organize her city's first youth climate strike and performed her award-winning poem for that crowd. And you can actually learn more about Akila's story today at 4 p.m. Eastern. She'll be speaking about her work creating environmental change as part of EarthEcho's Youth Leadership Council. So check it out if you can. So nearly half of the world's population is under the age of 25. So it's so important that you all continue to engage in conversation and action around environmental issues, because your voices, each and every one of us, is really truly needed in this global and collaborative effort to speak up for our ocean and for our whole planet. And one way that you could do that this year is by participating in Bowseat's 2020 Ocean Awareness Contest. So you can submit visual art in any medium, poetry, film, music, short stories, dances. Interactive media is our new category this year. So that includes things like games or apps that you create. And I've got some other important details on this slide, but you can find all of the information and the online submission form at our website, which is bowseat.org/contest. And this year's theme is Climate Hope Transforming Crisis. So we want to hear what gives you hope, what motivates you to protect the environment. We want you to explore what solutions are already taking place or design new possibilities. And we want to meet your climate heroes. So your project doesn't need to focus only on the ocean. You could think about looking wherever you live to find examples of projects or individuals that are making positive change. And if you're interested in biodiversity, you can look into nature-based solutions to climate change. So this includes the protection and restoration of living ecosystems like forests or wetlands or coral reefs. And if you go to our website, you should check out our resource studio, which has videos and articles to learn more about the impacts of climate change, as well as lots of examples of action and solutions, from climate justice to low carbon transportation, to how we grow our food, or how we power our cities. And you can also find podcasts and games and inspirational media and tips for getting involved in climate action and ocean conservation yourself. And we also have a section for teachers too, with lesson plans and activities and really cool tools to visualize. oceans and climate change. And lastly, I just want to kind of close with that we know that it can really feel overwhelming to be aware of all the ways that our planet is in trouble, but we wanted to center this year on hope and on solutions, and on stories that will really energize us and accelerate action and collaboration to take on climate change. And we really hope that you will join us in this movement and share your story or your vision with us. And I look forward to seeing what you all create. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. It's so interesting to hear that the contest is not just visual art, but can be poems and prose and things like that, because I think that's something that, when we think about an art contest, we think, oh, you have to be able to draw or paint. And I think that that's really lovely.
Yeah, we think about art and creativity on this kind of larger, in this larger way. So we know it's not visual. We think about how creativity in general can really speak to people, and that goes beyond disciplines. So
definitely. So we have a question from YouTube, and what is your favorite part of working with BOWSI? Why do you like working with BOWSI?
That's a great question. Well, I have a couple of things. As I mentioned earlier, I love that I am able to share two things I'm very, very excited and passionate about. So both the arts and the power of the arts in changing people and in changing the world, but also just in environmental education and outreach. So being able to combine those every single day is really exciting and motivating and energizing. But I also really love working and sharing with and learning from young people. I think that it's the young people that I've met through this work are really inspirational, and I think in general kind of show the energy of this force that we're really lucky to have. The planet's really lucky to have right now. So it's an honor to work with these young people and be inspired by them and learn, how it's got to be this intergenerational movement of people coming together to take care of our planet. So
that's great. Yeah, we believe that at EarthEcho too. We're all about empowering young people. So I think we share a similar passion there, which is lovely. And with all of these art pieces that you have coming in every year, do you have any favorite pieces?
Oh gosh, that's like asking your favorite pet, right? I love all of them. No, I see right, like thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces each year. And I would say that some of my favorite pieces have been in the music category in the past couple of years. They'll often get like stuck in my head and I'm like singing about saving the earth throughout the day. And I love that. Trying to think of a piece that really, a lot of the pieces that I included in the presentation are ones that I find really compelling. But it's really hard to choose a favorite. But like I said, music has been particularly compelling for me in the past couple of years.
That's really, really awesome. And I know the answer to this, but can you share with our audience, are you yourself an artist?
I am, yeah. I am a visual artist. I draw, paint, make collages, murals. So yes, I'm an artist.
And can you tell us a little bit about the last mural you did that focused on plastics a little bit?
Yeah, so we were really excited to partner with an initiative called Seawalls, which is a mural festival that brings artists to different cities around the world, and they create large scale murals focused on the protection of our oceans and issues facing our oceans. So we were really excited to partner to lead the youth engagement kind of aspect of that festival. So we were in Maui at a high school in Maui, and we worked with a piece that was kind of the original art winner of the BOWSI contest back in 2014. So it might be actually on one of the next slides, but it's a whale with plastic, kind of forming the underwater part of its body. And the artist really wanted to show that a lot of, there it is, yeah, exactly. So the artist Daphne, she's from Peru, she created this to show that like, while the oceans may look healthy on the surface, there's actually a lot more to that story, and they're really being plagued by plastic pollution. And so I reworked this piece as a, I don't know, 16-foot high mural on the campus of Baldwin High School in Maui. And it became this really lovely participatory and collaborative piece. So I painted the whale, and then throughout the week would have students come and we would talk about what marine debris they found on the beaches in Maui, what single-use items they use on a daily basis that have just become so habitual for so many of us, or other objects that they encountered. I know they were going through a styrofoam banning or styrofoam ban at the time, so we had a lot of conversations about that. And then throughout the week, students would just come by and we'd have these conversations. They'd add plastic pieces to the whale, and so it became this really organic conversation about how we are tied to the issue. Humpback whales migrate throughout Maui, so it's a really big cultural, marine species for the Hawaiian Islands, but it also is a really big draw for tourism. And so we had a lot of conversations about like, well, how can we protect our whales? They may be threatened by this issue that we're connected to on a daily basis, and what can we do about that? And we also led a couple of workshops around this project. But yeah, it was really, really cool to think about this kind of piece becoming bigger than itself, than the original, and really becoming this, it's right in the middle of campus. So this conversation piece on campus about how everyone plays a role in protecting our oceans, particularly from plastic.
That's awesome. Love that story. And we'll do one more question that we have coming in from YouTube, and that is, are there any ocean artists that you look up to? So maybe they're not part of BOWSI, but maybe students can get inspiration from or something like that.
Totally. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if I would call her an ocean artist, but she's definitely an environmental artist. Maya Lin is an artist and architect, and she really thinks about our relationship to water and how we experience our relationship to nature. So I find her work and her installations to be really, really inspirational and moving. And one of my favorite projects that she launched a couple of years ago is called What is Missing? And it's an online platform where it's basically an interactive map that looks at biodiversity and habitat loss. It's amazing. And so it plays with cultural memories of particular places that may be losing things like fireflies or certain kinds of birds. So it's bringing in diverse perspectives on how the planet's changing, but also projects that are going on in these regions that are helping to restore biodiversity. So it's a really, really cool, engaging, moving platform. It's got videos and audio stories and images, and it's called What is Missing. I would highly recommend checking that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up today, we just want, first of all, Alyssa, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story about BOWSI and all the amazing artwork. We want to encourage everyone to stay connected with BOWSI online. So you can see here, they're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Alyssa is also nice enough to add her email. So if you have questions about the contest or anything ocean art related, you can reach out to her and she'll be happy to help you. And we hope that you get a lot of submissions this year. I'm really excited to see. I think that the theme of climate hope is really lovely, and it's kind of a fresh breath of air that we all could use for sure.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Yay. All right, so EarthEcho International, we want to invite you to join us for our exciting programs that we have too. We have EarthEcho Expeditions, we have Water Challenge, STEM Explore, and we are excited to announce a brand new program from EarthEcho International. So I want to play a little video for you all. All right, so I guess we didn't have audio there. Love technology. But what Philippe was telling you, our fearless leader, Philippe Cousteau, was telling you, is that we are excited to announce a brand new program at EarthEcho International, and it's called the EarthEcho Challenge. The EarthEcho Challenge is a STEM innovation competition that empowers U.S. middle school students to take a closer look at biodiversity in their communities. Students will first identify threats to local ecosystems and then propose solutions to help preserve, protect, or repair those natural resources. The 10 finalist teams will join us in Washington, D.C., where they will present their ideas to restore or protect local biodiversity. The top 3 teams will be awarded up to $10,000 in grants to turn their project into a reality. So we encourage you to visit our website and submit your plan to save the world. The deadline for that is March 22nd, 2020. Be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho on our social media channels and our website. And we also want to say a big special thank you to the National Biodiversity Teach-In and the students and teachers at Elgin High School for inviting us to be part of this tremendous event. On behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you for joining us and keep exploring.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
you.